Boom, bang, bam. Live again. It's been a minute. Turn this on to do a quick audio check. So, we are doing something fun today. New year, new controller. Here's my audio check. All right, sounds like we're rocking and rolling. Excellent. All right, so, hello, and welcome to the stream. Today, we are building some patches with the Erae Touch here, which I will show you here. So, if you've never seen this before, this is an MPE controller, which stands for MIDI Polyphonic Expression, which allows us to get a little more expression because we can not only press notes, but we can kind of wiggle them up and down, and we can move them left and right. And the polyphonic allows us to have two separate MIDI notes at different points of their expression. So we can have this one down here, this one high. As we shift this, it doesn't affect the bottom one, so it allows us to do all kinds of fun playing. This is a somewhat newer controller. It's brand new to me. I just got it last week, the Embodme Erae Touch. So what's cool about this controller that none other MPE controllers can do is that you can program all these different layouts in here. So you can have there be a key grid. You can have it play like a piano. I don't know if there's any piano presets in here. Well, there were some initial presets in here, but I've been going through and messing with them. Let's see if I can find some keys. Good planning here, guy. No keys. All the keys are gone. But you can put a keyboard in here too. This one's kind of close to a keyboard. This is also a key grid. I've just made it look like piano keys, and this is just to give you more expression this way. So you can program these however you want. So I've got like the first 5 are ones that I've done. Here's like a key grid with some like controls here, which you can use to MIDI map to whatever you wish. So the fact that you can program it, and there's like a companion software that goes with it that allows you to sort of program your own layouts and stuff is pretty cool. So you can use this to sort of drag and drop and build your own stuff. This is their standalone software. So it's pretty fun. It's like stupid powerful, and it's compared to other MPE controllers pretty affordable. So I went and sprung for it. I've been looking for an MPE controller for a while, and I feel like this is kind of what I was looking for my MPE controller to do. You also got scale modes here, so you can lock these key grids into any scales you want. Every layout also has this alt button, so you can assign like 2 layouts per thing. So like my alt button for these keys is 3 rows instead of 2. You know, you sacrifice some vertical expression, but this is still a lot of vertical expression space. Panda Cat, what's going on? Happy New Year to you. Hope your holidays were good and groovy. But yeah, so that's kind of the basics of the Erae Touch. You get different kinds of expression out of it that you can't normally get off of a regular keyboard. When you're in the key mode, it's kind of like a rolly C board, but a rolly C board, you can only glide between notes, at least from what I can tell. At the top or the bottom of the keys is where they had a room to slide, whereas this I can slide in the middle, which is nice. It's nice that you can like choose scales and lock it into scales. The key grid is more plays like a Linstrument, if you're familiar with a Linstrument, except Linstruments you can't lock into scales like this. There is a third-party developer. There's like somebody made like a thing to load in the Linstrument where you can do keys and stuff, but it's limited. It's only majors and minors, and it's okay. But yeah, so this combined with the fact that you can add in like sliders and stuff. I mean, there's like drum pads. There's a sequencer in here. So you can do a lot of crazy stuff with this. So one of the crazy things you can do with it, make this a little bigger, is you can program MPE stuff. So Wavetable, which is Ableton Suite instrument, has MPE built into it here. When you're in the smaller view here, you see that there's these tabs for different ways to assign different modulation. There's a whole tab for MPE, so it works automatically with your tablets. So I've been making a instrument pack basically of a bunch of different wavetable things. I've got 2 different instruments made, each with like 7 presets. So I'll just give you kind of a quick demo of what the sound is that we're going for and play a couple things, and then you'll get an idea of what we're going to be working on this stream, and it's just making more of these instruments. So let's get jamming. And it does look cool, Panda, because it is cool. Go into a Mixolydian mode, which is Mixolydian mode is like a major mode, but the 7th note is a flat. That's the flat. So when you play in modes, you want to kind of focus on what, if you're playing in a different mode other than major and minor, it's good to emphasize those extra flats that are in there. And you'll hear as I can do vibratos and slide up to open expressions. This is all stuff that I programmed into this instrument rack. There's that Mixolydian flat 7 you just heard. So that's kind of just like one of the sounds. So this one, that preset was called Cyberwaves. It's part of my Cyberwaves wet rack, which will be out. This pack will be released in probably a week or two. There's stuff like you doing these like fun swells. I'll switch views here so you can get to see like a key grid. My alt for the key grid is just a little bit bigger key grid. What's nice about this is you can scale the key grids down. So like for instance, before I was using a launch pad, which doesn't have MPE. It has Aftertouch, but it doesn't have MPE. So a launch pad is a similar key grid, but this is only 64 squares, which was sometimes limiting. What I liked about this is I could scale it down to a similar size, have a similar size key grid. But now there's what is this, like it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. No, yeah, whatever. It's like 100 some instead of 64. Which is nice. And there's actually, I can even make it, I think, smaller than this, but then it becomes a little hard to play. Especially since there's no feed, it's just a smooth surface, so there's no, you can't feel the squares or anything like that, which is fine. It doesn't matter. I'm used to positionings anyway with this. So here's another preset. This one is just called Swell. So it's super fun, and you can program all the colors and everything here. So like in here, you open this here. So every single one, you can choose however you want these to be displayed, whether you want these to be like big squares, hollow squares, little dots, whatever. It's probably actually a little better view to see what's going on, because as you scale it, the squares get bigger. So I've color coded everything, so that way it's easy to find like my fifths and my thirds. So this is my root note, is pink. The smaller pink is my third. The big square is fifths, and then the smaller square of the same color is my fourth. And then anything that's a warm color is more of, so if it's like a minor scale, those are gonna be majors. So it's just easy for me to kind of find stuff. So if I'm like moving to like my third, I can easily find my third up here. And if I want to just go to play the fifth of that third, the fifth of my third is right above it, because I always do my offsets on 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and those are my 7 notes. Then it repeats. And in doing that, it kind of actually, and I'll have a whole video actually about the theory behind using the 4 offset. 5 is often default, but I like the 4 because here's my root, and then this makes this my third, this is my 5th, this is my 7th, and then a 9th if you want it. Otherwise, your root is there again if you want to play up there. And what playing in this kind of a grid lets you do is it allows you to do different sort of like chord voicing. So there's like a triad, 1, 3, 5, except my 3 is up high. Or you can invert it and go like a 1, 3, 5 there. So root, 3, 5 backwards. Or you can extend really far and go like a root and then a third an octave up and then a 5th up from that. So it allows you to voice your chords in a lot of different ways that you can't normally do on a keyboard, because with a keyboard, if you were to do these like really intense chord voicings with one hand, like that last one I did, like my root here, and then can you see that? My root's here. My third, I can get to I can get to my third, but I can't get to my 5th an octave, extra octave up, because we're extending like 16 keys. But I can easily do that and more here. I can actually extend up to 2 octaves if I want to, or 2 octaves up on the 5th. So key grids are awesome. I like key grids. Big fan. They're fun, especially when you're playing pads, just to sort of mess around with different compositions in and stuff. So that's key grids and stuff. Anyway, let's start building. So here's actually, I'll show you the other rack I worked on. The other one is called Outer Rim that I'm working on, and it's a similar thing. Basically, these all will just be this rack here when you open it, and then it has all these presets here. But I'm obviously working with it open because we're designing, and it's fun to watch this kind of stuff. Each one of these racks, the filters kind of work the same, but they have a little bit different effects. Like this one's got noise and auto pan, whereas the other one's got a crush and distort. And I don't know what we're gonna do on the third one. We're just gonna go for it and see what happens. I never usually have a plan going in. I just start designing and sort of let the sound take me. So this is Outer Rim. It's kind of still a similar pad vibe, but a little more stuff. Such things. Oops, what am I doing here? Oop, that's what I'm looking for. I like to mess around in this view when I'm designing these patches, because this one, it's a little easier to control my vertical slide. You can vertical slide in key grid just like you can on like an instrument, for example, but it's a lot smaller to work with. I like to mess with the big one, and this is more true to what you'd see on like a Rolly Seaboard, or there's that really expensive $5,000 one with like the smooth felt surface. I forget what that's called. The Continuum, that's what it's called. Okay, so since I've already got this instrument rack here, which already has sort of these envelopes mapped to a wavetable, I'm just going to actually duplicate this Outer Rim instrument. We're just going to call this layer new, because I don't know what it's going to be called yet. We got to make the sound, see what it sounds like. Okay, now we're going to deconstruct. So I don't need all these presets. Let's go ahead and just delete those. Boop, 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 boop. And then this one utilized some effects. What did we use here? We had a noise and an auto pan. So I actually had 2 separate wavetables in this instrument. One was generating noise. Oops. That's a noise layer using wavetable noises, which actually use like a bunch of LFOs to move it enough to make it sound like noise. Because a wavetable will take an audio and sort of break it down to different frames, and you move through the frames. So if you're playing noise without any sort of modulation, it just sounds like a static sound. But when you move it around and modulate it, you get that noise sound back. So that was that combined with just a regular wavetable. So this was a 2-layer one. The first one didn't have 2 separate wavetable instruments in there. I kind of like the idea of having 2 wavetable instruments. And so from here, we can kind of think about how we want to switch between the 2. So I could, if I wanted to have 2 fully separate wavetables that have totally different kind of sounds, maybe one starts like soft and then it gets really, really distorted and crazy when you slide up. We could have 2 separate ones, and we could have one turn up and one turn down as we move through. So there are certain limitations, sort of, in that the only MPE in Wavetable that we can control is the MPE section of Wavetable that you can assign stuff to controls everything in Wavetable. So if you want to control something outside of Wavetable that's like an audio effect, you'd have to use this MIDI effect for MPE control. And oops, not MPE control, expression control. And what expression control lets you do is expression control has these MIDI ins, and here you have slide. So slide is actually your vertical sliding up and down. So you can take that sliding and you can map it to, say, like a reverb. So then as you slide, you get more reverb. And this is why I like Ableton a lot, is because it's really easy to do this mapping stuff and use these slides. So slide is your up and down, pitch bends are your left and rights, and then in this case, aftertouch would be your pressure after you've initiated your note. So you can use expression control to also control stuff with MPE. So I've been building this with Wavetable because it has an MPE envelope modulator built into it. Not an envelope, but it's a modulation section. So I can point MPE and Wavetable to that. But with expression control, you could also use this to use the analog instrument or something else that doesn't have MPE support. So you can really make anything MPE compatible with this expression control using the slide, aftertouch, and pitch bend. So just a fun tip. We don't need this at the moment, so we might need it later, so we'll keep it in the rack. Okay, so the way I kind of start with these things, let's just start with one instrument at first. Let me turn this noise off. I also have an auto pan on here. We'll turn that off. We'll just turn all of our effects off on our rack. So I just like to just start messing around with different sounds. I'm actually going to load up. Let me turn these filters off until we know what our sounds are. And then we'll just work with oscillator 1 for now. Let's just go in here and just find a random sound. And I try to, anytime I make a pack, I try to keep it on a certain theme. In this case, it's like there's sort of like space, type of pads. Outer Rim is sort of, the vibe. So I know I want this to be some sort of space thing. So the first 2 are kind of different pads. So because I have 2 pads now, I could make this into some more of like a lead or a bass or something that's more like a monophonic sound. So it just plays one note. So let's just click around and see what we can find. This is retro. And I already have my MPE mapped to sliding my wave up and down. Interesting. Echoes, harmonics, percussive organ. It's kind of a lot of distortion as you scroll through this wave. There's a lot of different places. It almost sounds like it's dropping out. Let me also, while I'm here, let me turn off all my modulation for everything. My warping, gain, turn all this stuff off. Keep the amp velocity there, pressure velocity is fine, pitch fine, no bend, pitch, yeah, we want that. Slide, turn these off. Filter frequency, and I'm just double clicking these to turn these off. Oscillator warp. Okay, so the only thing I'm keeping for now is the oscillator positioning. That way I can just sort of use this to scroll through the wave, see what it sounds like. I, of course, inherently, because it's a wavetable, the default idea of putting this on here seems like it's, you'd want your slide to move your wavetable up and down, but you don't necessarily have to. I could have my wavetable be assigned to, say, let's say like envelope 3. I'm using envelope 2 for my filters and stuff. So let's go to envelope 3. And so we could have our envelope slide us around. And then, of course, it sits there and it's static. So if we didn't like that it stops and it's static, we can also go to like our LFO. Let's say, let's go LFO 2. And we can also have our LFO 2 affect our position. So let's go here. And then let's mess with this a little bit more. That'll move for us. So the envelope is going to track the course of the envelope. It's going to tack up, and then it's going to come down to the sustain. Turn this amount down a little more, but let's turn the rate up. I don't know if I like that envelope doing that. I might go back to the slide. But keep the LFO on it, which gives it a little bit more. Send a little reverb just to see what it... What else we got? No reason to commit to one thing right away. Robotic. That's interesting. What does it sound like up high? A little up there, up high. Yikes, that's intense. But we could always, you know, add a filter onto it. Let's see, filters. We have this as split right now. So this is filter 1. Let's go. So with this filter in Wavetable, it's kind of fun. You can either have it, you can kind of change the routing. So you can have it do like serial. So both of these 1 and 2 add onto each other. You can do parallel. So they are, I forget what the parallel one, their exact wording is. Routes all oscillators into both filter 1 and filter 2, adds half of each signal together. So they're separate. Parallels are separate filters that are applied and they combine the signal together. Or you can split. So filter 1 applies to oscillator 1, filter 2 applies to oscillator 2. Let's go ahead and change this to a, let me unmap this also. Unmap from cutoff. That should have, let's just remove all this mapping. I don't really usually map it back again until we're ready to go again. This has still got remove mapping, remove mapping, move mapping. Okay, once we get a little farther in crafting it, that's when we'll fine tune everything again. Now we have control of this back. Do a 12 dB per octave cutoff. Let's not do any res. Just have it be a... It's a little bit better now. It doesn't it's kind of interesting how it sounds like it's like sliding up fixed intervals, but it's not. It's just a wavetable. It's kind of fun about Wavetable. Okay, so that's more of a, this is more of a subtle sound. It's kind of a softer sound, especially with that filter applied. So we could turn on our second oscillator and find something that's maybe going to round it out more, kind of give it more punch, which doesn't always have to be in the signal. We can do things where as we slide or move up the keyboard, this second one gets louder. There's a lot of things we can do. Let's just rest. Let's click that, see what that sounds like. I'm going to turn off oscillator 1 just so we can hear oscillator 2. And I'm going to turn oscillator 2 off on the filter so we can just hear the raw wavetable. Interesting. You can see in the wavetable that the top half of this wavetable is actually much smoother than the bottom half. So if we don't want to get into this smooth territory, we could move the slide positioning down to only go in our, this is in our modulation section here, to only go to like halfway up. And we could actually even invert this so we can go minus 47 or minus 50, and we can start this right at the top of where it starts to get smooth. And it'll go the opposite direction. Now let's see how that plays with our oscillator 1. Let's scale are we in here? We're in Mixolydian on this guy. Change things up. F minor. Kind of interesting. Sci-fi sounding indeed. Okay, let's turn a little bit of, let me turn the reverb on a little bit just so we can. Oh. Tame those high frequencies a little bit. Okay, so that's something. Let's get a little farther along and see what else we can do. So we did think about using a second wavetable. And if we introduce a second wavetable, we could have a knob that's sort of like an A-B knob off to the side. But I don't really know. There's kind of a lot harmonically going on here. I don't know that I really want to introduce any more noise into that business. Let's put a little bit of a high pass, or sorry, low pass on our oscillator 2. Let me just listen to the oscillator 2 by itself. Let's turn the res down. Just a scoosh. Let's turn this down more. But so we can add key tracking here. So we have a note section under our modulation. So we can have a note impact our filter frequency. So let's have, as we play a little higher, open up the filter just a scoosh. That's basically how we add key tracking to a wavetable filter. Maybe we also have our slide open up the filter, also just a scoosh. That's kind of intense. I'm going to knock this one. Oh, it's already down an octave. Oh, we're playing pretty high. It's too low. Yeah, I mean, mind you that this is spanning 6 octaves, which is a bit much. I could even just flip back to 4 if I wanted to work more in a... Okay. So, because we can always, basically anytime I'm designing any sort of like preset or anything, I'll sort of keep working to get it more towards an end state, and that's where I'll go back and start taming in any sort of harsh frequencies, you know, make sure everything is all the sound levels are all equal and it's exporting a good level audio. I also use limiters and compressors at the end of these racks just to ensure that if there is, for some reason, especially if you're cranking up resonance on a patch, that you don't blow anything out, which is what's nice about making racks in Ableton. I've been making things also in Decent Sampler, and the thing that's annoying about Decent Sampler is there's no built-in like limiter or compressor, so if things get too loud within the plugin, they usually will distort in the plugin before they export anything too loud, but then you have distortion in the plugin. Also, just a quick tease. I'm going to tease this real quick because I can do what I want. I have a new Decent Sampler instrument coming out soon. I'll show you what it looks like. This is the first I've ever showed this publicly. Nobody knows about this. I built this Caseolina. I used an SK1 to synthesize a bunch of different sounds, and I made basically like a Selena synth. So you have vibras and organs and harps, all that stuff, harpsichord. And it's just kind of got some, it's got some very fun, sort of very almost 80s, it uses a keyboard from the 80s. So, because you can synthesize sounds on an SK1. People use it as a sampler keyboard to sample farts and make fart beats, but, or, you know, lo-fi beats. But you can also use it to synthesize sounds in a very unique way that not a lot of synthesizers have. Oops. But anyway, that's coming out soon. That's fun. Just a quick tease. Probably be out next week. There's also a free Ableton instrument that goes with it. Okay, so anyway, where were we? Okay, so if we have sort of our basic sound, we want to think of... I am actually going to turn this second one on here and have this be more of a soft pad, because that's kind of got a lot going on. Let's turn this off for now. Turn the reverb. I feel like I could add just some really, really soft sounds in here. Let's add some, let's do that. Let's add some really, really soft sounds. I'm going to turn these, get rid of these LFOs because we're not using this noise stuff. Let's go ahead and turn off all this shit too. And if you're wondering why I didn't just load a new instance of Wavetable, it's because I've already mapped all of these like envelope attacks or envelope ADSRs to this rack. I don't want to do that again because it's on both instruments. Okay, so let's just turn one oscillator on. Unmute this. So we're going to find something soft. So there's this harmonics section. I've got these various sines in here. So this will just add a really soft tone. Let's go ahead and just solo this layer. Oops, not making a sound because this is mapped to that. Let's go ahead and remove that mapping. Actually, don't remove that mapping. Just name it different for now. Wave 2. Back up to 0. Just something real soft like that. Turn the envelope off at the frequency. Of course, it's rather quiet. We'll remove this mapping because I want to turn this up more. Badoop, badoop, unmap. See if we can find. Okay, and I'm going to add another one here. Let's go to harmonics again. What does the spectral one sound like? Spectrals are a little more warm. I just realized that this is assigned to me. It's on serial. Let's do actually, we will stay on serial. Let's open this filter a little more. That's with it, without it. So now we can add, we can do like this chain here, this chain, and then we can use these little sliders here. And now what we can do, although this is going to make them quiet halfway through. Let me think about this for a second. Well, I'm trying to think about a knob that transitions A-B between the two. Wave. Let's see. So if I wanted to have, because right now let me just show you what I'm working on, what my brain's racking with here. So we can take this chain here, map to the wave, and then as we move this knob, it'll transition between the two waves. However, if we wanted the option to have both waves be at max volume, it won't be, because here in the center, they're both technically at half volume. But in terms of audio levels, they're pretty equal, so this isn't the worst way of doing it. So we could also, going back to what I was talking about with the expression control, let's open our expression control back up. If we wanted to take our slide and map that to that new wave knob, we could have our position on our key grid here impact our wavetable. So now we're switching between two separate wavetables as we do this. That sounds like shit. Okay, maybe this is in the wrong direction, which is okay. This is really all about exploring and trying to just sort of see what sounds good, you know, come up with different ideas. Just because you have an idea doesn't mean you have to stick with it. So if we keep our wave so I just unmapped the wave from the slide, because it seems like having two in separate. Oh, you know why? I'll bet you. Oh, you know why that actually sounded like crap? I'll bet you. Let me see this. It's probably because this chain is not MPE compatible. So, oops, map to wave. Got it there. So you see that chain selector over here is where we're looking. As I move it, it goes up and down. But when I hit a second note, typically in MPE, if you have a truly supported MPE device, it would register it would bring, anytime you play a new note, it starts running that note through the filter separately, so you can apply a filter independently to that note versus another one. In this case, with this chain selector here, as we're doing this, and I press a second note, this chain does not support MPE. So what it's doing to make that crazy noise is it's flipping back and forth between the two notes. See it? So you go crazy. That's why that does not work. And that is one of the limitations to not, even though you can use this expression control to assign MPE controls to something else, that is the huge limitation, is that the thing you're sending the signal to might not support MPE, so it's just going to take whatever the last signal is. So if my one slide is down low on a knob and another one is up high, as I change the pressure, it's just going to pick up the most recent pressure change, and it's going to bounce back and forth between those 2 points, which makes not rad sounds. So we can't use a slide for that, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with abandoning an idea entirely. Now, just for the sake of trying something different, I'm going to make a third chain here, and all this chain is going to be, is just another exploration idea. Let's go ahead and put all these back to 0. Well, we don't need to do that yet. We'll just set the chain to all the way on there. Okay, let's just explore a third idea to maybe even potentially ditch those first two. Let's see. Ideas. We could do something like really insane. We could make make an instrument that's like, would you hear it, that I cannot talk today. Make an instrument as though it was a scene where like a big alien, mothership has just come into the scene. That obviously isn't the sound, but let's see. Let's go to our wavetable position. Let's have that impacted by our slide. Let's put a little bit of LFO onto this as well. Too much LFO. enough to keep it moving. Sometimes on some of these, you'll notice that the part it stops on the wavetable will sometimes be sort of, it just kind of sounds just, I don't know how to describe it. It just sounds almost like there's something glitching because you're just taking a one moment in a longer wave. So it's not, whatever you're listening to isn't necessarily meant to be listened to in just one static spot. So adding a little bit of LFO will just keep that wavetable moving no matter where your position's at, just to keep it alive, if you will. Okay, so let me turn these back off here. You can see better. Oops, too much. Turn my wavetable off. Turn that off. Hide. There we go. Ah! Where did the... There we go. Out of control. Turn this expression control off. Okay. All that to get back to my reverb. What if we drop this down like an octave? Now we're getting more into mean alien spaceship mode. Now, what if our slide moves our... Oops, not our resonance. We want to move our frequency. When you're using this, in case you're wondering, when you're using, if you're ever trying to assign envelopes to things in Wavetable and the thing isn't showing up, you have to click the parameter and then it'll show up on the bottom. So like filter to resonance, filter to frequency. And then once it's there, then you can add in your parameters, your modulation. Okay, now we're getting into some nasty stuff. Maybe I'll have the resonance drop as the frequency opens. I've got my second oscillator on. I want the filter to open more. This is gonna sound interesting. Okay, so we're in mean mode. I'm just gonna name this layer just to get in the mood. Mean mode. Okay, we're making something mean. So let's turn on our second oscillator. Let's go find another distortion. Let me turn the first one off just so we can hear it separately. That's right, it's not set to position change yet. Just go ahead and map the position slider as well, just to see. We'll also put a little bit of LFO onto this position as well. Can I rearrange these positions when they're here? No, they're just whatever order you put them in. That's kind of annoying. Let's invert this. Let's see what it sounds like if we go the other way. Not a huge difference. Okay, turn the first oscillator back on. Let's knock this one down. 24 semitones. Oh. Do you contain a similar effect with the pads on a push 2? That's a good question. I'm not sure. I haven't used a push 2. I don't know what the MPE capabilities of it are. It's whether the... I don't know if it's like the launch pad that has aftertouch, because like the launch pad has aftertouch, but aftertouch is just the pressure change. It's not position. So like here, let me go to like a similar view. This one is tracking my slides. It tracks your X and Y axis movement on that specific pad. So it's whether the push also has that or not. I'm not sure if it does. If it does, then yes, you can do this. You can do exactly what I'm doing on a push 2. If so, I can Google it real quick. Do you want me to Google it? Let me Google it. Push 2 MPE. See if there's a quick question. Push 2 polyphonic aftertouch. So it looks like push 2 does have polyphonic aftertouch, which is not MPE. In a way, it kind of is technically, but it doesn't give you the XY you need. Let's see, yeah, push to 5. Here's a thing saying it. Here's a form saying it supports 5 parameters. Ba-doop, boom. Polyphonic aftertouch, release, velocity, CC value. Push to, yeah, I'm not, yeah, it doesn't look like it will do this exact same thing. You can also use, so something else you can use, and this is what I was using before, is expression pedals. So if you have, like, for example, this Keylab, and most keyboards that you have not only have a sustain pedal input, they also have an expression pedal input. And an expression pedal is just, put this up here. Mine's broken. I have a Moog one coming, which is way better. This is an M Audio one. I wouldn't recommend this one. It's crap. But it's just a pedal with no spring in it that just moves up and down. So you can, with an expression pedal, you can assign this to any MIDI CC you want. So you could have, in this case where I'm assigning everything to everything I'm assigning is to my slide, you could assign everything to a foot controller, expression control, or a mod wheel, of course. I often actually map this foot controller to my mod wheel, because when I do a lot of presets, I like to make presets that use mod wheels for plugins, and so I use my expression controller as my mod wheel, so I can keep 2 hands while I'm playing. Because taking a hand off a keyboard to use a mod wheel, I don't like doing that very much. Because I always am doing like these really big pad sort of swoop things and stuff. So there are ways to do it, but it's just going to be a little bit different. That's why MPE is so amazing, and this is like one of the most affordable MPE. Like this is with taxes and imported and everything and shipping. Was like $800, but if you compare that with like a Linstrument, which is like $1,200, a Continuum, which is like $5,000, a Rolly Seaboard, which is over $1,000, this is really affordable, and it offers like the most versatility by far. But anyway, let's get back to making this thing. So what else can we do here? We could try having this not be a serial filter, but having it be split. So we'll have, of course, I had my number 2 set up for number 1. Hang on a sec. Filter 2 frequency. Let's change this to filter 1 frequency. What is that? 53. And then filter 2 resonance, which is supposed to be filter 1. We had at -28. Okay, and then it was also set as I have my freaking webcam right in front of my rack. That was super dumb. Okay, now we should have our filter back for that one. Okay, so the second one, we could do the opposite, where when I slide up, the filter actually lowers. So filter 2 will go minus a little bit, and we'll increase the resonance. Oops, wrong parameter. That's wow, that's a lot of low end going there. Let's go ahead and flip this forward more. Typically things get brighter as you slide up, and here I have concocted the inverse. I wouldn't be surprised, Chris, if one day, the push 3, I'm sure the next time Ableton makes a push, I would be so shocked if it didn't have some type of MPE control in it. And I'm sure Novation has a launch pad they're cooking up that has MPE control in it. I was hoping they would make one, but I got tired of waiting, and really wanted one, an MPE controller, so I got one. And now I can't even imagine. Now I like play just like a keyboard or the launchpad by itself. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so boring. I'm like so hooked on MPE now that it's ridiculous. Although I gotta say, this so this pad you can also hit with drumsticks. They designed it to work with drumsticks, and it's like this really thick silicone, and so it takes a lot of pressure to play it, which took me a couple days to get used to. Now I'm completely adjusted to it, but I am like pressing really hard to do this stuff. Even with the sensitivities turned all the way down, so my fingers do get fatigued, but granted, I'm like using this thing for like like 4 to 6 hours a day. But yeah, I'm sure I you know, I'd be shocked, like I said, Novation push, if they didn't switch to making more MPE controllers, because Ableton already supports MPE. More things are becoming MPE compatible. It's sort of the future. I mean, this whole time we've been playing things without expression this long. It's like, now that it exists and people can see the capabilities, I mean, there's no going back now. There's no going back. Okay, so here we have it. I wonder if, so there's other ways we could brighten up our, oh, we have oscillator 1 turned off. Duh. There's our bright. I'm gonna have it not go as high for oscillator 1. There we go, a little better. So here's the other thing we can do. So I kind of want a little more, I feel like I want maybe some more craziness happening. So with this filter section, there's a couple different types of filters you can turn on. Clean is default, but these other ones have different types of drive elements in them, which is going to just take this thing through the roof. So let's do, I forget which one. Let me go back. Let me see. This is what I like about Ableton too, is you can hover over and it shows you on the left side, little helper thing, which you can't see. It's off the screen. So we got different types of filter. Clean is just a regular EQ8 type of filter. OSR is a state variable circuit with hard clipping. MS2 is a silent key circuit with soft clipping. SMP is a hybrid between MS2 and PRD. PRD is a ladder circuit without resonance limiting. So I want to go with the hard clipping OSR for our first one. So filter 1 will have OSR. Now we have this drive knob, which we can mess with. So maybe let's just mess with the drive knob. Let's modulate that for our slide. Maybe add some LFO to that also. I think I might actually do an external LFO. Where'd it go? There it is. Let's bring this LFO over here. And I'm going to map this external LFO. I know I have two LFOs here. One of them I have set, I'm already used. The second one I'm not using, so I could use that. So what I'm using this one for is I want to do a random. Ignore the camera turning off, that'll fix itself. So I'll do this random one. But the reason I'm not using the randomizer in the wavetable is that there's no smoothing option, where this has a smooth option, which allows me to take these square random things and smooth them out, and now they're a little smoother. So that's what I'm looking for. So I'm going to map that to my drive, and that's going to do it an insane amount. So we don't want it to do that much. We just want it to do just a little bit, just like a 10% window. Okay. So that's going to automatically do some work to our drive knob. Let's change the offset so it's where we want it to be. Let's, also instead of actually changing those percentages, we also could have just changed our depth. But that's okay. So because the drive knob, we want it to be around 0 to start with. So we're going to tune this in until we get this drive. You see down here, it's working at like a 12 dB right now. Let's get it down to a 0. Come on, why is it not? Oops, that's the wrong knob again. Offset. Break it down. 11%. Clear this out. Oh, I cleared that. And went, oop, that was stupid. I mean, that's what I wanted to do, but that was stupid. Let me turn this at 0, turn this at 10%. There we go. Now it's sticking around 0. So now it's generating a little bit of its own random numbers, and that just gives us some variation. Let's go a bit more depth. Not really very noticeable, is it? Maybe go deeper. Now it's going up and down 4 dB or so. Let's turn the rate down. This is without it. This is with it. Very subtle. Okay, and we also have the drive of the MS2. Let's have that drive. Sorry, of our frequency 2, it's the MS2 drive knob. Let's have that drive controlled by our slide. So as we slide up, the filter is going to drop. The drive is going to increase. Interesting. All right. So we're building something interesting here. I'm going to go ahead and delete. So I have 2 other wavetables in here unused that, just a contrast, this is where we came from. Already a much more interesting route we've took. I'm going to delete those other 2 wavetables. We don't need those chains taking up precious CPU. And I don't want to forget about them either. Oh, also, I have this thing all messed up. Let me go ahead and fix this. Now that we know this is the route we're going, I just want to do a bit of a... wrong way. Bit of a hard reset on this chain here, just so I don't forget about anything and mess something up all silly like. My chain selector, is it mapped to something? Why can't I grab it? That's okay, we'll just have this be the full. Okay. And what I didn't check is the... Okay, it's fine. What does it sound like with some... punch now in that low end. So let's think of some ways to add some punch down there. Let's hear what each one of our oscillators is doing in the low end first of all. That's got some action going. Down there. We also have a sub we can turn on. I don't think that's gonna give us what we're looking for. Okay, so we want some more low end oomph-a-doomph. Let's think about this. Let's think about this. What can we do? What we could do is have a saturation plugin on a chain that only captures low end. Because the MPE won't work for a lot of other stuff. Let's go ahead. We don't need these open there. We actually don't need these on here. We'll keep them there for now. Okay, so let's do a new audio effect rack. There's a lot of I'll clean up this rack once I'm done. I polish everything up. All right, audio effects. So this is I don't know if this is gonna work, but we're gonna see. Let's open our chains. So we're gonna have a chain here, and we're gonna have two things in this chain. This might really mess up sonically what's going on, so we don't know if this will work. So let's go high end, and then let's go low end. Okay, so what I've done is I've put two auto filters into each of these. So one will have as a low pass, and the high end will be a high pass. Let's have this one. I'm just making sure I set it in a way where I don't lose any information. So now we have two audio chains here, one that's low end and one that's high end. So now I can come into my low end and I can add in like a saturator just to my low end, or actually let's do an amp. Let's get weird. So we're just adding this to the low end chain. We've got a little more low end. I would like this though to only, this is where I wish I could have MPE working to trigger on every note, because I would like to only have it play when my slide is down here. But unfortunately, that's not the case. See, we're getting very different sounds now. Oh, because I have my low end soloed. But what I can do, so now that we have this is, so because each one of these instruments, I have a few, they'll mostly all have similar knobs, but there's a couple areas where each one has like unique effects. So this one could have a distortion section where you can modify this distortion coming through this amp here. Let's hit heavy and see what happens. Bass. It's a little more subtle. That's without it. That's with it. That really does add some grit to the low end. I like the bass, actually. Gives it some good low end presence. All right, let's unsolo that. Things is happening. So I could also, if I want to, add a saturator at the end of that and see what happens, but it might get that might be a little too much tuna. Let's go ahead and output as much as we're saturating. Cuts off some of that real power we're getting. Okay, let's leave it on the bass thing. We could though, so because we could use a second amp, and what that would mean is that we could map both amps to the same knobs. So if we have like a gain knob, we could map both knobs to a gain knob. Then as we do stuff like gain, we could have volume turned down for both. All kinds of fun stuff. Oh man. Wow. Now we're getting real mean. And both these amps have dry wet knobs, so I could have one of my knobs be a dry wet for the amp. Okay, so this is we're getting some really bad resonances in here. Let's go ahead and turn our resi down for that one. So on this thing, I'm just going to turn on, so I'm going to map these right now to the dry wet knobs of each so I can see what these sound like on and off. Freaking love Ableton. So amazing. See, that's okay. That's okay. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Yep. Oh, a little stretch-a-rooney. Don't forget to stretch. Oh, take some stretches. Oh, it's nice. Drink some water. So a big question is something to always consider anytime you're designing anything is whether it should be polyphonic or not, because sometimes, especially when you're messing with a lot of like distortion stuff, if you get too deep into a lot of distortion stuff, it sounds horrible when playing polyphonic. And I don't think we're there yet, but we're getting close. The other thing to consider, so I myself, when I'm playing, anytime I'm playing, I'm usually playing pretty spread out, doing like really wide chord voicings. I'm not playing a lot of like close triads, but a lot of people do. So anytime you're designing a sound that you know other people are going to use, you got to keep in mind people will be doing closer chord voicings, even if they're, you know, playing inverted or something, but still close. Actually sounds okay. Not there, it doesn't. Kind of, not really. We won't make that decision yet. We could also just do things like turn it into oh, I forget that you can, that's right. We're not doing that, we're not there yet. Okay. Actually, let me mess with this. So there's these different warping things. There's like an FM, classic, modern. The modern has like these warping and fold stuff in it. That's interesting. But just having these on, in and of itself, actually changes the sound quite a bit. Sometimes. Doesn't seem to be doing too much crazy stuff now. Okay, let's go ahead and take our fold here. And let's take our fold and assign that to our slide. Is my noise gate turning off too much? I just don't want to feel like it keeps shutting off too soon. Okay. I can hear myself, in case you're wondering. So now we got some folding action going on. Allegedly. Don't think that that's... Why is it not reacting? It's not folding. It should be folding. You can see here what it's doing. See these little tiny, probably can't see very well. Those little tiny gray bars, but this one's not folding. Do I have to go negative to do it? No? What's going on here? Works in that direction. Why is it not working the other direction? That's weird. Oh, it works. I have it on a little bit. Weird. Huh. So if I have it up, then it reacts. But if it's not, it doesn't as much. That's strange. I'm not sure what's going on with that. Just out of curiosity, if I turn the reverb off, what kind of nasty bass do we have here? That's kind of fun. What's cool about MPE too is that the position of your Y is wherever you tap is where it's gonna enter your sound. So you can like start a note playing up high and go down, or start a note low and go high, which is sort of cool. All right. Okay, we're getting a little out of hand here. Part of me is thinking that this might have to be just a one voice thing. And I can also do just a two voice. Duophonic is. There's a lot going on. And the other advantage is if I have mono on. Wait, do I have to have. I can do unison also. Do I have to have mono on to do unison? No, it's not. I didn't realize there were so many unison options. Goodness gracious. Different modes offer multiple oscillators, different phase, stereo locations, wavetable position to provide a fuller sound. I didn't realize there were so many unison options. Goodness gracious. Oh my god. It sounds a little bit like a lightsaber starting up. Boy, this is getting out of hand. I think I might list this one as a bass because it definitely seems like it does better in the low end than the high end. The high end, it's fine, but we're definitely engineering this thing for the bottom end. I just can't decide if I want it to be mono or not, but decide just yet. So what's really fun, okay, I'm gonna try something really quick. So this is gonna focus more on the Erae Touch for a second. So what I'm gonna do, side by side, flip scenes here. Okay, so I turn my, we're gonna make a template here in the Erae Lab. We'll take our 6th spot because I've already done stuff in number 5. Typically I'd load a project and do this separately. So let's take our, actually I will load a project. Let's go ahead and open our normal layout. So what I'm going to do is since my bass is mono, I'm going to load up, oh my gosh. I'm going to have one half of my pads play my bass and the other half is going to play like a pad. So my layouts. Okay, so here's my project file I have, which has all my defaults in it. So I'm going to take my key grid from here, come to 6, paste it, and then we're going to make it smaller. Boom. We'll actually have it go this way. Okay, so that'll be my bass. And then I'm going to duplicate this. Is that my duplicate button? Duplicate. And this top half will be a separate thing. So what I can do is change the channels. So I can have this one. Right. Sorry, these are on MPE. I don't know if this will work. I don't know if this will work. That's okay. So let's mess around with this. Let's go ahead and push this to the device. Just going to save into our number 6 slot. So now I think I can go to, let's say, Cyberwaves, MIDI from, what did I set? I had channel 16. Ooh, yeah, I can't choose the channel on MPE, though. Maybe this won't work. I have to be on not MPE, which would not be as fun. Let me try anyway, though. This is channel 16. This is channel 1. Yeah, you know, it was worth a shot. I'd have to not have these MPE, which I can do just for demonstration purposes, but oops, messed that up. PE off. Channel 1. Actually, I had that as 16. Then channel 1. Oops, MPE off. Channel 1. Okay, let's push that to device. I can actually just preview also. This app is super cool. This is how easy it is just to really quickly make and load templates into the Erae Lab. It's redonkulous. Okay, so now we have our bass is channel 1 and our leads is channel 16. So let's go back to here. All instruments, channel 1. Let's select a sound here. Let's go. Turn the octave up on that channel. And make sure these are both in the same scale. C-Aeolian. C-Aeolian, okay. But not on an MPE. Which sucks because this would be way cooler with MPE. I don't even know why I'm vibratoing because it's not picking that up. But anyway, it's a super fun toy. I really wish there was a way to do channels on MPE. I could probably, the other way I think I'd probably have to do it is to set up like a basically like a filter in a way to where one thing filters the bottom half, the other one filters the top half of notes, so there's like a max limit for each note. It's kind of like a keyboard split in a way. It was how I'd have to do it. Like I could do, okay, this is because half of this stream is about Area Lab. I'm gonna venture off here. So I'm gonna show you a way you can sort of do a keyboard split with any MIDI controller. Doesn't matter if your MIDI controller supports it or not. Okay, so we're gonna add an instrument rack in here. Instrument rack, give it to me, thank you. And we're gonna use chains for this. So there's a chain for keys, so you can set the keys. So I can take my, let's do this outer rim one. I actually think it'll sound better. You can take the outer rim instrument, paste it onto here. Hopefully it doesn't override my instrument rack. Okay, so that loaded outer rim on that chain. Now I can take my mean mode and paste that into this chain here. Paste. This is my, oops, which one of these is my mean mode? This is my bass. Okay, now what I can do is drag these things here. So let's say I only want my bass to come to bass. We'll say the bass goes to there, and everything above that is pads. Boop. Now I have a MIDI split this way, and now I have MPE enabled. Easy. Just a sec to set up, but now I could save this rack if I want to do and use that whenever I want. But this sounds like actually pretty bad when you play that low. I'm gonna actually retune these. Let's do back to 0 on this one, and -12 on that one. Now we can play them as separate, totally separate things. And I can still load in all of my presets here from my outer rim and stuff. Now that I'm doing this, I actually might, as part of this pack I launch, actually have these available as splits as well, so you can play the bass with everything else, because this is kind of interesting, actually. Let's go to like Road to Mars. Anyway, that's how you could do a split and have this be split and maintain your MPE, even though the channels don't work. You know, there's no channel support for MPE, but because the reason why there's no channel support for MPE is because the way MIDI polyphonic expression works is every single time you press a note, it's generating it on a separate channel, and that's how you get the ability to like control like this note and have that be a separate expression, because it's on the different channels, and that's why there's no channel selector for MPE. I should clarify that. So there won't be any future update where it will work. They'd have to re-engineer how MPE works in order to have the channel support. But you can do this this keyboard split here. So anyway, that was just for fun. Split. I'll keep that in there because I might launch this with splits potentially. Okay. Anyway, we don't need that right now. Let's go ahead and make that small. Oops, that was the opposite of small. Boop. Okay. Back to mean mode. Which now I've messed up. What happened? Where's the audio of mean mode? Is it because I Need to be on that. It's weird. That shouldn't matter. Okay. So one thing I was doing as I was playing is I noticed I don't have anything yet assigned to my pressure, my aftertouch, basically. One of the easy common things to do is just assign it to the app, so that they're the amplifier, so as you press harder, turn it up and down, although it's already pretty loud. It's making minimal difference because the amp, actually, because our sustain is all the way up, we'd have to have our sustain down for that to work. So if we did like a... Oh, that's not tied to anything. Amp envelope. Tie that to the amp. No. Oh, okay. Well, never mind. Never mind with the amp part. I still want it to do something when I apply pressure. So we could have it do filter stuff. So let's see, this filter frequency, we could have it increase this filter frequency a little bit and filter one frequency a little bit. Not really always necessary to have something like that, but just gives you a little bit. That really is opening it a lot, actually. Because, you know, we're in you know, polyphonic expression. We want to have every axis available to make a different sound. We'll do this for filter frequency 1 also. Man, a little bit goes a long way with these. It's only at 27, but you see how it's like jumping all the way up to full, pretty much. Okay, and so now that it's starting to kind of go somewhere, now we can start, if we want to, start mapping things to different presets. So we know that we have, we made this split rack here for our amplifiers that we've had actually at 100% wet this entire time. So we can use this knob now to map to some stuff. So let's go ahead and say that this, we don't have auto pan anymore. Let's say amp. Map that to this knob, because these launch with presets, so now I'm trying to think about what presets I can have. That also is still mapped to an auto pan, which I still have on somewhere, apparently. Because I don't know if you heard it, but there's an auto pan also kicking on, which is in this effects chain, which, yeah, it's still on, which I actually didn't hate that that was happening. But until I come up with another idea for another effect we could have on this thing, we could unmap that amp we had there. Let's turn that amp off, turn this back to auto pan, and have this one be our amp. That way we can have independent control over the auto pan and the amp, because there would be times where you don't want your amp, but you might still want to have some nice auto pan. Especially if this is a monophonic instrument, that auto pan would really... Oh, and you know what is, because, okay, so previously I mentioned how this expression control, even if you assign the MPE parameters to something else, because it doesn't support because whatever you assign it to, say a dry wet knob on an amplifier doesn't support MPE, it's going to generate those two separate frequencies, and it's going to be alternating back and forth between those two control voltages. However, if we have a monophonic instrument and we're only playing one note, we don't have to worry about that because we're only going to have expressive control over one thing at a time, which opens up a world of control with this expression control, which means we can do stuff like have the slide impact our amp. So let me demonstrate. Let's assign this to this here. Now that turns our amp up and down. So you'll see we have our dry wet knob for our amp over here. But I don't necessarily want it for the amp because half the fun of the amp is that in the low end of the amp is where you get a lot of great sounds with that amp. So it wouldn't maybe necessarily be for that, but we could do it. Okay. Let's see. Let me think about this. We could have an LFO control this dry wet knob, as well as have the dry wet knob exist in and of itself. Okay. Yikes. We are really engineering. Mind you, this is just going to be one of 3 or maybe 4 instruments in this pack. But I follow a pricing philosophy on my website that it's $5 or it's free, because I think $5 is a fair. I don't have a Patreon or anything, so this is sort of how I do my stuff. Okay, so let me assign this to that. Oh, does that break our locking? But we can't then map it here. That's right. So we can't have this. Can we? Sure, certainly we can. We can. Did that break that mapping? Yeah. Doesn't like that. Well, shoot skis. I was just trying to think of a fun way. I've got it. This is going to be ridiculous. I might undo this, but just for fun. Did I just delete that LFO? I think I deleted the LFO. No, it's right there. Okay. So I'm going to put... This is clowning. We are straight clowning. This is just like over engineering 101. Okay, so I'm going to have this. So all this amplifier stuff is in an effect rack with its own chain, which is splitting into high end and low end. So what we can then do is group this, just Command G. Now this effect rack lives inside of this, oops, that was anticlimactic, this effect rack. So we have 2 effect racks now. So what that means is we can take this LFO and have a second chain here, create chain, which is effectively a dry and a wet chain. So we have one chain which holds our amplifier chains, and then we have the second chain which is nothing. So we can then set these volume parameters here and here. Okay, let's put this LFO, we'll leave it outside the chain. We're going to take this LFO then, and we're going to map this LFO to the chain selector. Now, see, and now this LFO is going to turn our amp on and off, but we will only hear that amp when we have the dry wet knob of this amp up. Let's go ahead and turn our amp up. Zoom. This is uber clowning and I fucking love it. Okay, now find that LFO. Here's our LFO. Okay, but this was all just so we could then... Okay, so we have, let's take this expression control and take our, let's do our aftertouch and map the aftertouch to the depth knob of that LFO. All the way back here. So as we increase our pressure, the depth knob is going to increase. That was a lot of reconfiguring just to be able to get a pressure control, which I already know I'm probably not going to keep, but I just wanted to just show you a way to be creative with all these Ableton racks. There's so many racks in here. And then I could take the slide, take a slide, and map the slide to rate of that LFO. Now we don't want it to get that fast, so we'll come back to this expression control and we'll say maybe 79%, and we're going to start the minimum at let's say 15%. Okay, let's see what visually this is doing to our LFO.
Which LFO is it?
As you press lighter, it gets less depth, less deep. Now, you can hear there, you can hear it sort of speed up, but you can tell there's an LFO going on. So I'm actually going to have the rate not go as high, like way less, just so it doesn't sound like there's an, because either you want it to where it does audibly something like, let's turn it down. There we go. And now that we have that LFO, and it's assigned to this stuff, we can do some other wacky stuff. Like we could assign that envelope, that LFO, to literally anything we want. Again, I don't know if I'll keep this in here, but we're just having fun. So what's another fun parameter we could possibly map this LFO to? Maybe even within our wavetable. Maybe we map this to the fold of our wavetable. Whoa, that's wacky. Let's go ahead and rein that in real quick. We don't need it to go that full. Let's go to like 20%, 18%. It's creating too much of an audible effect in terms of it's creating a rhythm, and because the rate is currently mapped to our vertical position, I don't want there to be anything rhythmically created with the LFO, because then it'll be out of sync with whatever the track is. Then people are probably going to want the ability to control the rate of that LFO, but the rate of the LFO is currently assigned to slide, so there is no way to control that rate. So we want to assign it to something that isn't going to create as much rhythm but still add something to the track, or not assign it at all and just stop trying to do anything with this, because with this LFO, because what the heck. Let me turn it off for a sec just to see what difference this is truly making. So here's with it on. Here's it off. So I noticed because the depth is more of our slide, the rate really isn't making much of an impact because the rate isn't super audible until you get into the higher thresholds anyway. So I'm going to turn the rate off of slide, and actually maybe we'll have one of these be the rate of our LFO. So let's map this to LFO, and this way I can assign it to more parameters that maybe create a rhythm, and then it can be synced to the project. That way, it makes it a little more. What's the word? Sorry, I'm trying to do multiple things at one time. I need to turn this map off over here now. Jeez Louise. See, the thing is that this looks like a crazy chain, but when it's presented, it'll just be this nice chain with presets, and all these chains will be closed. We're just in, this is currently build mode, which is always crazy train. Okay, so now the rate knob is free. Let's go ahead and switch that to sync. So now it'll be synced to project tempo, which you can't tell there because I wasn't playing and there's no metronome playing, but it's synced to project tempo now. And now that means we can actually have this do a little bit more. Let's say we assign it to fold again. Maybe we have it more on the high end of the chain selector. Which side of this chain selector is my effect one? It's the top one. So we want that side to be more favorable. Okay. Okay, now just to see how this would sound with the track, we're going to record a little quick ditty. Little ditty do. Let's go to our outer rim here. Let's turn this mode on. Okay, let's just go ahead. Make sure we're all on scale here. Ceolian. I'm recording Mixolydian because it's fun. Okay. Let me set. We got a tempo set. What's our? Okay. I'm just going to improvise something. I'm actually going to switch to the key grid to do this. C, Mixolydian. Got a foot pedal, which lets me turn my recording on and off too, which is nice. So the rate knob does actually add some nice rhythm to it. So test complete there, I guess. Let's go ahead and stop that in case I press play again for some reason. Okay, so how crazy we want to get with turning this thing on and off, I'm not sure. Like, do we want to have the ability not to have it on? Maybe. I'm not going to make that decision now. I'll make that decision later. So here's kind of now that we have some things assigned, let's go back to our, let's see, so we want that to be a rate knob. Let's go ahead and assign this to our rate. Wait, is it already signed? Wait, that shouldn't be assigned. What did I assign that to? I assigned that to the wrong LFO. Rate. Map. That should show, why doesn't it show the, oops, I didn't mean to do that. It should show the sync rate. I thought it would show the sync rate. It shows the frequency. I don't know why it doesn't show the this rate number. I don't know why it's showing up as a whole number. That kind of makes it harder to set a rate. Well, pisser. Because I want people to be able to see what the rate of it is at. I don't want people to have to guess. Or I could just have it locked into like a... have it locked into a 1. Is there really much reason to make it faster? Yeah, I mean, I could see the reason. I could see... I don't know. I'm like so indifferent about it. Okay, I'm not gonna make the decision now. I don't always make all the decisions now. I sometimes sleep on it and let it sit. But here's now where we can mess around with starting to make some form of presets. So just for funsies, let's just save this as the init just so we have our settings. What's fun about Ableton racks is being able to like randomize stuff. So it's fun to just press this random button. And it'll randomize all the knobs, and you can exclude some from knobs by right-clicking and excluding from randomizations. You can also exclude them for variations, which are the presets. So I'm just going to hit random, see what happens. Let's get into something dark. Let me give you some, go Phrygian. Which Phrygian is a minor with a second flat. Let's have the filter do some stuff on this one. Let's have it do a slow rise. Because when you randomize it, sometimes the envelopes get set to really wacky stuff. Super wacky stuff. Like 13-second releases. I also don't know that delay is an effect we want on here, which was grandfathered in from the other one. So we could get 2 more knobs open by turning this delay off. Although it is adding some that is actually adding some rhythmic delay to it, which is kind of nice for a monophonic instrument. And I know I say it's on poly right now actually, but might keep it monophonic. Ooh. There we're getting some wackiness. You can hear the wavetable sort of acting a fool, and that's from this LFO is causing that. It's still, oh, it's still going. Oh, because I have the LFO here assigned. No, it's oscillator 2 position. Oh, oscillator 1 position. There it is. That's what's doing it. Let's go ahead and turn this one down a little scoosh. We'll rein it in. Let's see. Frequency 1. We don't want to be maybe impacted as much by... no, it's not impacted at all by... Let's do slide. We'll turn the slide down on it. Doesn't sound super great, sexy up there, but that's also really high on the keyboard. It doesn't suck on polyphonic. But your notes have to be pretty far away from each other. Interesting. So we'll kind of just keep I'll dial it in more later. I actually want to add a little bit more frequency back on those slides. And just turn more down to the resonance. But it really seems to be this folding that's causing the most of our sonic issues. Not the folding, but the... Ooh, nope, got worse there. Okay, we'll I'll work on that later. But yeah, that's basically... Let's hit another random, see what happens. Hey, there it goes. You'll notice I have a key out. I notice this sometimes happens where it like doesn't turn back on, but it's still alive. That's a nice. That's a. Another way to sort of supplement something that's monophonic, if you want to have some sort of like if you're trying to do something that's monophonic and you're just going from like here to it cuts off the other note, so it's kind of abrupt, and that's where reverb decays are actually really useful, because you can set like a long reverb decay, and then as you make that switch, that signal will still be there of that low end in the reverb. Also, when you randomize the preset, you see the delay feedback also got to 90%, which is really high. But when you're dealing with like this monophonic stuff, now I can do those. You still have that low end sort of hanging out still, so it doesn't just like cut it off instantly, which is useful. So this is what's interesting. So gets nice. We'll need this one. So we had this rack that we initially called mean mode, but then we made something nice with it. So like we went from this like really harsh of course we're playing in a Mixolydian, which is mostly a major scale. That mean sound to this nice little So I could see the benefit of having this be polyphonic. And what I could do, oh, but there's only voices. I could have like a switch to turn it on and off. Of course, if you wanted it to be monophonic, just play it monophonically. And if you wanted it to be polyphonic, then play it polyphonically. Benefit to having that bass note just held. We've done it. We designed another instrument, so I'll make a bunch of presets for this one too and throw it in. That'll be in the pack as well. So there'll be quite a few instruments in here, but I wanted to play this thing. I also had to we'll wrap this up here, but what's funny about this thing, so because this thing is so let me change views here. Boom. Let me turn this here. Let me turn this back on. So this thing, when you're doing these like vibratos and stuff, you gotta press like pretty hard, and it really like shakes the table. I mean, that's the thing with MPE, right? Is that you're playing on new axes, and so shaking like this was like shaking my whole table. Like now you can kind of see my monitor on the side there. It shakes a little bit. Before it was so my desk. I mean, my desk is stout. I mean, I made this myself, and it's got like huge, like big fat legs. It's held together by steel. But because I'm like pressing down and vibrating, everything was shaking. So I actually installed brackets on the back side of my desk, so it is like glued better now. Like my water doesn't shake and stuff, and things are a little bit better. It also can be mounted on like stands and stuff, but then it gets really wobbly. But that's better if you're like using it as drum pad or something. But anyway, yeah, that's the Erae Touch, and that's some sound design in with Wavetable and Ableton. I don't know what this pack's going to be called. Probably something around the lines of Outer Rim or something like that. But I'll make a video when I launch it and stuff like that. I'll also have a more full video of the review of the Erae Touch, because there's not many videos on this thing because it is so new and it is expensive, and I think people are weary about it. And I had a lot of questions about it that were not answered in any video, and a lot of videos were just like first look impression videos, and I had already read the manual and like learned everything about this thing before I watched those videos. So I watched the videos and they're like, that's weird, why is it doing this? And I'm like, oh, it's because you're pressing the wrong button. And I kind of learned how to use it before watching all these videos. And so there's not a lot of good in-depth videos about it, so I will be making a fuller in-depth video about it, because it is a super powerful controller. So much fun, and just this MPE having an MPE controller is just super nice. You can get away with a mod wheel and an expression pedal assigned to the mod wheel for a while, but it's just so nice to have independent finger control over each one. Slide it up and down, bend it, vibrato. It's just it's awesome. Yeah, that'll be it for today. I got to go do some stuff. But I appreciate you guys hanging out. Panda, good to see you. Chris, I don't know if you're still there. Thanks for tuning in. This might be up in a week or so. That Olina I showed you earlier, that'll also be up next week. I have a lot of stuff coming out, and I try to keep a balance of freebies and paid stuff on the store. Again, I'm not planning on doing a Patreon. The store is going to be kind of the Patreon, so if anybody wants to support the channel, the store is the best way to do so, and I appreciate everybody there. I recently had a Melodizer plugin which I made recently, which is like a random MIDI note generator, which is on the store right now, gorleyrecords.com. That's free to download, and it generates random melodies and stuff. Super fun. So I'm just constantly building and experimenting, and I don't release a ton of tracks because I just get so lost in this aspect of it. I mean, it's just so meditative for me just to sit here and just play these notes. I'm getting better at recording what I'm doing, but it's a matter of releasing it and all that stuff, and I just like this sound design process so much. I'm totally just hooked on it and everything. But anyway, that'll be it for me. Thanks, guys. This is the first stream in a while. I'll start streaming more again. I've sort of revamped and organized my life a little bit better so I can start making more content for this channel and put myself in a better position to be able to do so. So there's going to be a lot coming out for me in the next few months. I've got so many projects I'm working on that I'm so excited to share, and I try to not spill the beans on anything until it's ready to go. Yeah, so we'll get there. But anyway, thanks for hanging out, and yeah, maybe I'll give you a nice little jam on the way out.